Hey guys, it's Mountain Walk, and today we're going to be talking about a little bit about one of my favorite decks. Of course, we're going to be talking about Domain Zoo. That's right, a zoo deck. Friggin' zoo deck in Modern. That's right, another modern deck tech thing. Just infinite decks from Modern, where I was like, man, this Modern Horizons 2 thing really invigorated a bunch of different stuff. This is definitely great. This is what we want to see, you know. And really, what we're looking at these days is like a really fair modern, like really just a ton of like really good fair decks. Like there's a ton of answers, a ton of really good cards you can play, and that's great, right? Because answers were pretty limited. So a lot of the success of certain decks was based solely upon like, there not being good answers in black. It's like, oh man, like yeah, these black decks, a huge swath of the color pie or decks in the metagame can't answer like my Death Shadow very efficiently or whatever. And they print Fatal Push, and then you look like a dummy. And so like, there are things where a lot of times, there's the old adage like threats are better than answers, things like that. Um, and that's mostly true, I would say, especially in a format, again, where the answers are just kind of limited, not that great. But we've really seen a big push. One of the only good things Wizards has done very recently in the last, we'll say, 3 or 4 years at least, is to really push removal. Maybe there's a lot of modal spells, um, or maybe it's just really efficient removal, of course, like the aforementioned Fatal Push, but also the modal spells that are very good, very efficient. Things like Abrade. I like to call this sort of the Abrade era, where we have stuff like Abrade, which is just so flexible and so good, and just not really bad. You don't really give up anything. Um, so definitely a very good sort of sideboard card, but don't need to don't want to digress into sort of like theorizing and philosophizing about this kind of stuff. But we're going to be talking about Zoo today. We're going to be talking about Domain Zoo, so a 5-color Zoo deck in Modern, reinvigorated. It's going to be great. All right, here we go. This is Zoo, of course, has always basically been just a beatdown deck, just beating them down to heck, beating them the heck down. So that's pretty sweet. We're definitely going to be wanting that. Um, So that's cool. So yeah, Zoo, in case you don't know, is an old archetype from old extended, like 1990, 97, 98. That kind of era was when the first Zoo decks appeared. An old extended with the original dual lands and like the Mirage fetch lands. I think they played like the Mirage fetch lands as well as. Did they play Land Grant? I think they might have. I'm trying to remember. It's a really long time ago, but they played, a bunch of. Actually, no. Now that I think about it, I think maybe even the original Zoo decks might have been even older than that, like in even before like Type 2 was made, right? Because of course you had all like, for example, you can make Zoo style decks that were played in old school, like red, blue, green, like with Serendipity and Curd Ape and stuff like that, or with Savannah Line and Curd Ape and friends and Sarah Angel. But again, I'm digressing. I'm digressing. I'm sorry. This is a sweet deck. Makes you think about all sorts of stuff. But we got a pile of new cards from Modern Horizons 2, two very important ones, and some other really important role players as well, right? This deck is very sweet, very cool, very powerful, very strong, and it does a lot of things pretty good that you wouldn't expect. And because this is a 5-color deck that's fairly low to the ground, there's just there's tons of cheap spells and things like that you can play, so you can tweak the deck to your current meta, or what you expect to see on Moto or whatever. So there's a lot going on here, a lot that you can do. So, let's get into it. Let's look at the deck. Let's see what's going on. All right, here we go. So what we got is we got like 12 removal spells, just a bunch of burn, right? Then we got a bunch of dudes, and then we got a bunch of lands. Obviously, like I said, yeah, this is a 5-color deck, but it's mostly Naya. Well, I should say it's mostly just I don't want Naya. It's basically it's red, green, white. But really with a red, green base. Typically, for the most part, that's what really most of the cards are. With a lot of the domain stuff, of course, you need to have these other sort of basic land types. And so we're able to really actually integrate that in pretty easily, pretty well, no big deal. We don't have a ton of 1-drops, of course. Notable omission, as you see, there's no Wild Nacatl. Of course, I love Wild Nacatl, but I don't think it's really quite what we want to be doing at the moment. I mean, this is kind of like it's not like a big zoo sort of style deck, but it does want to go a little bit bigger. But that's okay. We'll really get into this in a moment. But yeah, basically just creatures, a bunch of removal, and then some lands. And of course the sideboard, which is, I mean, yeah, we got stuff for, well, most of Modern seems to be pretty fair at the moment. But there are some graveyard decks, of course, like in the Living End, right? So stuff like Rest in Peace is very good. Or of course, Endurance would be another good one. We have a ton of green cards in here, and of course, just hard casting it is very good. So yeah, Endurance would be a good one. Also, Fury would be a really good one to play. There's a lot of red cards in here too. Fury, of course, is quite a good attacker. You know, since it has double strike, and of course its ETB just like is brutal against decks where it's relevant. But then of course we got Stony Silence against artifact decks. Same thing with Force of Vigor. Force of Vigor, of course, is another hedging against Blood Moon. Then we got Melee Mage and Gaddock Teague, as well as Thoughtseize. These are again for more unfair style decks or decks that are more linear, really rely on say like particular cards, like or a few particular cards. So like stuff like Tron or Eldrazi Tron with like Ugin or Karn or whatever, things like that. You can name that with Melee Mage. Gaddock Teague just doesn't let them be played, that kind of stuff. And of course Gigantha, because, well, we can play it. It's great against control decks, right? Because you can just, you know, put it into your hand, and it's a 5-mana 5/5 late game against control that costs you nothing, basically, right? It's just a sideboard slot. So yeah, a lot going on here. So let's look a little bit more in depth. All right, here we go. The first 2 cards, obviously, that jumped out to me that I'm like, holy moly, they want you to play Domain Zoo. When I was looking at Modern Horizons 2 spoilers, was Territorial Kavu and Scion of Draco. First off, these cards are callbacks, of course, to like Invasion Block. I love it. I started playing during Invasion Block. This is fucking rad. This is fucking awesome. For example, let's look at Territorial Kavu. Kavu first premiered in Invasion, and then we saw him a little bit more in Time Spiral, and then did we see any in Dominaria? I don't know. Maybe not. And then Scion of Draco is a reference to Draco that came out in Plane Shift. The 16 mana guy that had domain reduced and had an upkeep that was reduced also by the number of lands you controlled. It was huge. It was a big boy. But these cards are more aggro based, right? So here we got Territorial Kavu. It's basically in this deck, especially with all the duels, or I should say all the shocks and triomes, it's going to be a 2-mana 5/5 most of the time, and that's pretty good, right? That's pretty fucking good, right? Like, this is a big boy for very little cost. And of course it has the Rummaging, which is just absolutely insane. And then of course it attacks, and it has the exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. So it's graveyard hate, as well as repeatable graveyard hate and repeatable Rummaging. I mean, this is awesome. I mean, how much value can you get on a thing? I mean, this is great. I mean, this is perfect though, because it's like Territorial Kavu only really goes in these sort of 5-color domain style decks. Again, same thing with Scion of Draco, except it's just a 2-mana 4/4 flyer. I mean, shoot, I guess that's pretty good, right? I mean, last time I checked, I did the math. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But it does really crazy shit. Okay, so each creature for like whatever colors it is gets these abilities, right? This is awesome. So white creatures get vigilance, blue ones get hexproof, black get lifelink, red gets first strike, and trample gets green. So Terra Turtle Kavu is a first striking trampler too. How is this possible? This is ridiculous. Like this General Ferris, who is just like maybe a little bit fragile in combat, is like, nope, he has vigilance and first strike. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is really powerful. So yeah, this is just awesome. It's really awesome. So yeah, this guy, I mean, he has evasion, which is great. Flying, I mean, typically, right, like outside of those really old, literal old school decks of Zoo, which had Serendipity free, these style of decks haven't had like an evasive flyer, and this is so good when, especially like when the ground gets gummed up, you know, if that happens. Being able to swing with your dragon is quite good. I mean, this is awesome. I mean, this card is just great. And General Ferris, this is of course one of the reasons why we play some of these other multicolor cards, which we'll get to in a second. 3 mana, 3/1. Whenever you cast a multicolored spell, create a 4/4 red and white golem thing, which is pretty strong. And then hexproof from monocolored. So this dodges like a lot of the removals. So push, um, bolts, unholy heat, path, prismatic ending, just like whatever random blue removal. I mean, just any of that stuff is doesn't work on this guy. And he creates an army for you for just playing like random stuff. Even I mean, it's one of the reasons really why we're playing Lightning Helix. Well, of course, because of playing the shock lands will help regain us some life, but helixing one of their guys and then getting a 4/4 for free and gaining some life is a pretty huge shift on the board. Very powerful in fair matchups. So yeah, this guy is pretty ridiculous. Didn't see this guy coming at all. Really strong, really powerful. Only playing 3, of course. We don't really want to draw multiples. Although even if we do draw multiples, he can still like make you cast him for 3 to make a 4/4 and just sack him or whatever. Um, okay, so we got Shardless Agents. This, of course, basically goes along with Bloodbraid Elf. These guys are just basically is another way to gain cards, right? We don't really want to just lose to just a supreme verdict. We want more, be able to cast more cards, hold these guys in our hands, let them sweep the board, then rebuild with these guys. So Shardless or Bloodbraid Elf. Shardless Agent is certainly one of the weaker cards in the deck, I would say, because it's just a 3 mana 2/2. But these cards are good too because also they not only do they help us, just give us extra cards, but they can dig for our sideboard cards too, which is quite good as well. For example, say Stony Silence or Rest in Peace, which are just absolute like bangers against the decks they're good against. So yeah, Shardless Agent, really sweet card. I love it. Only playing 3, same thing with Bloodbraid Elf, only playing 3. But they're good cards. I mean, we got the 4 mana dorks, and then of course the monkey, which also makes stuff too, mana treasures, right, to give us more mana. So yeah, good stuff here. So yeah, I like the Shardless Agent stuff. I think that actually works out pretty well because this deck traditionally hasn't had much card advantage, if at all. Right, minus the ones that played Ancestral Recall, like in Vintage or whatever. But that's not even worth mentioning. That was a million years ago. Okay, now another and perhaps the last Super Modern Horizons 2 card we got is Ragavan. Now, typically, some of these domain zoo decks, you can just go like, I'm just gonna ram a bunch of 2-drops. I'm just gonna go try them into shock, and then always have my Territorial Kavu or Scion ready on turn 2 to be like a big boy. But I feel like stuff like Ragavan and by extension, I would say the noble or ignoble hierarchs. Um, I think they're just too good, and it's better because you can play fewer lands, and since Exalted stacks, like it makes your top decks a little better. I mean, you can still get some pretty powerful turns, like you go monkey, and then turn 2 you go like a hierarch or something, or hierarch burn spell. You get your monkey attacking for more, then you got more mana next turn. You get a treasure and the thing, and the card off the top, their deck. It's I feel like Ragavan is just too good to not play. So I feel like you just playing the like really good 1-drops, which would be Ragavan, of course, because it gives you card advantage and accelerates you, and like especially since the deck is 5 colors, like um you can already cast basically anything off the top of your opponent's deck as long as it's relevant, of course. Like I mean, there's a bunch of weird linear synergy stuff, like I mean, Ancient Stirrings, like the hell, like this isn't gonna help you too much, right? I mean, sure you can cycle it for a land, but like whatever. Um, so yeah, typically I would say yeah, Ragavan will give you quite a few cards, which is really good. It's very good against the creature light sort of combo decks or control decks, because if they don't answer him, I mean, Monkey just goes crazy, right? Just you're just going primal, right? You're just returning the Monkey and you're just losing it, and you are just throwing shit at everyone. You are just like you have just completely you've lost all chill, right? And you're stealing all their stuff, and you're putting it on your little pirate monkey ship, right? And you're sailing from Africa to South America because that's literally how they thought monkeys got to the New World, right? Why they aren't actually present in North America and Central or North America, but they're like in South America, right? So they sailed across from Africa. I mean, look, you can't make this stuff up. This is just real shit. Science, dude. You gotta believe the science. Anyways, um, Ragavan's sweet. This card just does so much. It's hard not to play it, right? And speaking of exalted things, we have Kasali Pride Mage. Now, this was a card I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I remember playing this card like, a decade ago in Legacy. And this card's really good. So it's a naturalize, of course. But it's another exalted trigger and a 2-mana 2/2 by itself, or I guess if you attack, it's a 2-mana 3/3. But um, yeah, this card is sweet. It's another 2-drop, which is really good. Um, I mean, because you basically always want your 2-drops. The deck is set up to the point where it's like you want to cast your monkeys or your hierarch on turn 1, but if you don't, you can go Triome into to shock, and then go to like Draco or Kavu, which is really good. Gives you that flexibility. Um, but yeah, even yeah, just stacking like these prime mages and hierarchs and stuff. I mean, it's like this is really good though, because like you can get your big boy attacker, which is quite nice. Yeah, and then of course we have the triomes. Like this is a, I think this is, I think two is best. Two is best, just because it'll make it a little bit more consistent, right? You'll be able to always have like at least by turn 3 at the latest, you'll always be able to have your domain set up, right? So you'll be able to go Savai Triome plus Breeding Pool, or Zagoth Triome plus Sacred Foundry, or whatever, to really be able to get your domain for all your domain cards, right? Travel Flames, Kavu, Draco, etc. And of course, when you draw in late game, I mean, it's, like you're playing a 19 land deck because you can just cycle them away, which is really nice. But yeah, Pride Mage is very good, very good. I like the card. I think 2 is fine. Just a good answer to random stuff. It buffs your attackers. I mean, like turn 1 monkey, turn 2 pride mage, and then you're going nuts, right? You're just going nuts. So yeah, good stuff, good stuff. Um, can you wait? Well, maybe. No, I guess not. But whatever. Anyways, let's move on. Let's move on. All right. So like I said, there's a lot of different options for the sideboard. Like I said, there's some of the pitch elementals, things like that. For the most part, it seems like there's not really much Tron at the moment, so we don't really have to worry about that too much. So we don't need specific Tron hate. So that's good. Yeah, and the deck has a lot of card advantage, right? That's kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for um, we just want a bunch of cards, baby. Want a bunch of cards. So this is, just ram a million cards out. And of course, the nice thing about, like I said, the Cascade stuff, they can get you to your sideboard cards too, sometimes, which is certainly a nice bonus. And of course, the sideboard, right? Like I mean, the deck's 5 colors. You can play stuff like Seal of Cleansing or Seal of Primordium instead of like Force of Vigor against some decks because again, you can cascade into those, and they're also like good. You can just play them early when you don't have a target and you don't have anything else to do. Just play them early, bam. Really good for your tempo for being able to just spend your mana efficiently. That's really good. Yeah, I mean, there's what more can I say? Well, I mean, the deck's pretty simple, but there's a little bit going on. There's a little bit going on, some sort of subtle synergies and stuff, but the monkey does work. Monkey does work. That's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm not sure how much more I need to say about Zoo. I mean, it's not like this is a super tricky deck, but really wanted to put a bunch of things into context. I mean, obviously there's no, for example, counter magic in the sideboard because things like negate or Dovin's veto or stubborn denial or whatnot obviously don't play very well with the cascade cards, of course, or something like mystical dispute, right? Because you don't really want to flip these off Bloodbraid or Shardless Agent. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff going on, a lot of cool stuff you can do, a lot of things you can really change up. So that's it. That's basically it, guys. So thanks for stopping by. I hope I hope you like this. I hope you're thinking about all the cool stuff you can play, cool stuff you can do. Hope you're messing around with your zoo decks. Everyone loves zoo. So thanks for stopping by and have a nice day.